Welcome to HerMusicWorld.
Velkommen til hendes
Добро
musik.
пожаловать.
Chào bạn đến với thế
Witajcie.
Swagat hai apka.
Benvenuti.
Onun musiki
Dobrodošli.
Mabuhay sa mundo ng musika.
A podcast with women from the music industry.
Like, yeah, it was just something that it was about to happen, regardless if I was ready or not. Like, do you see the microphone over there? Get on the mic. I just had this pull. It was pulling me. It always has. Well, always, as I can remember. Like horn section, and it's like, anyway. So yeah, it was called "I'm Hungry, Let's Eat." That was my first song, and I remember it to this day because then my family started singing it with me. And I was like, oh, you mean I can sing a song and it affects other people too? And so we wanted to go to the land of milk and honey, or what we thought was milk and honey for music. Listen, New York was an option, but my God, I don't know. I think around the world, everybody feels this way about New York, but New York seemed really tough. But it's not like how is it here in Berlin. And Berlin is just popping 24/7. Doesn't matter. Get your Gluehwein. Oh, it's cold. Well, get some Gluehwein, girl, because we still gonna be out.
How did you?
The exact same way I did in the States, which is I want to perform. Where's the clubs?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first thing I did. And so I started asking around. I got a lot of answers. But then I just went online and Googled. Google can be your best friend as far as information. I think my best moments were right after I did part ways with my musical life partner, that I realized that I can do this on my own. Pay us what we're worth. And Black people and women in particular pay us what we're worth. Because I can say that people aren't being paid what they're worth. Yeah. And that makes me quite sad. I just wanted to see more representation of women who are unambiguously Black that look like me.
All right. So, hello, I'm Zoey from the podcast HerMusicWorld, and I have yet again the pleasure to talk to another wonderful woman from the music industry. She's a singer, songwriter, and music producer, and her name is Coreena Brown. Hello, Coreena.
Hello.
I'm so happy to have you here. We have a broad spectrum of subjects that we talked about in advance, but this time it's only about you, and I'm really excited about it.
How I like it.
And before, me too. And before we go into a deep dive of your musical career and your artistry, I would like to ask you some casual questions. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So first one, have you ever had one or more goosebump moments in connection with music? And if so, what was that moment?
The one that I always think back to that I think I will remember for the rest of my life is my senior year at my college. I went to school for Berklee College of Music. And and alumni in the house. And so, yeah, I was performing, looking good, feeling good. The notes were on point. I just let it go. And, going to a college where there was so much talent, there was a lot of intimidation. Mm-hmm. There's just a lot of big talent, a lot of big personalities, a lot of just big energy, big energy. And so, you can kind of go into yourself like, am I supposed to be hearing it now? But I feel like that senior year on stage proved to myself that I was supposed to be there. I was in the right place. Mm-hmm. And and other people felt it too. Afterwards, everybody was like, wait, that was nice, sis. And I was like, yeah, I didn't know I had it in me like that. So that's what I think back to, that moment on stage. And not only feeling like I had hit the notes and felt the way that I was supposed to feel and this, that, and the other, whatever, is the emotion was there. Mm-hmm. For me, I will never forget that emotion of just being on cloud nine and feeling like the whole world was in front of me. Like, the world is mine. Let's go conquer the world. That's probably why I felt that kind of emotion. But yeah, that's what I was digging.
And can you still recall even that you had goosebumps? Or was it
Yeah.
Do you sometimes think back to that moment?
I do. Okay, so just really quick story time. There's this movie, this Japanese movie that I completely forgot the name of, but it talks about like when you pass away, what moment for the rest of eternity do you want to relive? And I would like right after I saw the movie, I was going around asking people that, like, what would you know? And then somebody asked me that, and I was like, oh, and it was that moment.
Oh, wow.
That moment I just described to you. This feeling of cloud nine, like being wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, waiting for the world. I love that little saying, wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, like a squirrel, just ready for the world. And yeah. So I think about that moment quite often.
Is that also a moment that would help you prep yourself, for example, before a concert where, sometimes you have concerts and you do things and you have one of those famous Monday days where you don't feel it? And then would that be a situation that you would take onto stage to prep you?
You just gave me something. I'm going to be doing that from now on. I don't know where to go when I'm not feeling it, because I'm such a person that I'm connected to how I'm feeling, even when I try to put it aside for performances. And I'm like, what is going on? I carry that on stage. As creative people, we do whatever we're feeling. We do have a tendency to carry that in our art, whatever that might be. And if I'm just not feeling it that night, then it might not come across to the audience, but it'll come across to me, and I'll feel it. And I'll be like, oh, I just was not hitting it tonight. I don't know what's going on. But, that's something I could maybe think back to that moment. You just gave me something. That's what so from now on, that's what I'm about to do.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah. There was a gift that you just gave me. Seriously. So that's what I'm going to do. Yeah.
And if you don't go back to that moment and you feel like it's a Monday kind of like mood, do you have a good mood song that always works? And if so, which one is it?
That is a good question. I don't. I think I try to go back to the artists that got me to the point of feeling excited about music and that inspired me, which is a plethora of artists. But there isn't a song or something like this. I just try to immerse myself in the people that inspired me to be where I was or at that time.
Well, sometimes, also people have said before that they have right now like one performer or female and male performer that they really enjoy listening to, or artist. And sometimes also people say they have a set list basically of people that they listen to feel better.
Yeah.
But I can get that. Makes sense. What you say. Can you name one person that inspired you?
It's hard to. Okay, so this is the thing, because I play different roles in my musical journey as a singer, songwriter, producer. There's different people who inspire different things. So I'm just going to name the first. Can I name 3 that come to mind?
Yes, please.
So
3 is the number.
Okay. Bjork, I love. She definitely inspired me in production, and as well as the freeness of her vocals, and the alternativeness of her writing and sound. And nowadays, though, because everybody knows who Bjork was, when I was growing up, everybody didn't know who Bjork was, and she was super cool, super popular, but she was always alternative when I was growing up. Now it's like, you got a lot of people who are, in my opinion, doing similar things, biting her style a little bit, But, she was pretty very different, very like this type of person. So Bjork, Amel Larue, which is may not be that popular to the world, but to me, she is a very special treat. Aretha Franklin, just hearing her vocals are just so like, they... Fortunately, what they do every now and again, record companies, is they'll release like unfiltered vocals of people from back in the day or in the beginning of their careers and this, that, and the other. And when I hear her sing, it's just like heaven. It's like hot cocoa with marshmallows. It's just everything it needs to be. And when I hear that, it is so it's inspiring. I'm like in heaven. So, yeah.
I have a similar experience with Ella Fitzgerald. I always describe her. It's so funny that you use food as comparison for what she sounds like. And I do the same thing.
Yeah.
When I listen to Ella, it's like honey in my ears. She is so soothing, and
Yes.
it's like I listen to her voice, and I'm like, that range.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, everything. Queen.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Bow down.
All day,
and,
all day,
right?
all day. And what's also fascinating about Aretha is that when she first, I was looking at a documentary and her analysis of her voice, and they were talking about how in the beginning of her career, because she just has this raw talent, right? It's just there. But also, after some different type of techniques and coaching, her voice began to, in her older years, increase in range. And as you know, musicians, singers, the older you get, supposedly your range decreases. Not Aretha's, no baby. She said, "Who? What? Huh? No, not me. It's going to increase," and that's exactly what it did. And that's also fascinating too to know. For me, ageism being a thing that I feel like I'm always looking at, especially now at this stage in my life. You don't have a limit. It's not like it's not over when you get I don't have to stop being a soprano just because I'm, maturing or leveling up is what I like to say. It can increase. You can do whatever you want. It doesn't have to be one way that people say. And so that's also inspiring to me.
Well, and it also depends on how you treat yourself. I mean,
For sure.
it's like, especially with the vocal cords, it's a body part. And it's true. In German, there's a saying that you are what you eat. And so
That is so true.
let's take the
Gotta
food.
take care of yourself.
And that's with everything, with alcohol, or with fluids in general, like what you consume and so on. And so it's how you treat your body, how you treat your vocal cords. It also has an effect on how you can sing later on.
Yeah.
And how you train that muscle.
Yes.
And keep training it.
Yes.
So
and she did it.
yeah, great story. I
love
love hearing about that.
Yes.
Have you ever listened to music in your youth where you think in retrospect, what kind of phase was that? Or, oh dear, that was, I don't know, somewhat embarrassing.
Yes, gangster rap. Oh my gosh, so misogynist, so horrible, just defecating so bad towards women. And it's just like, the thing is, I didn't realize it until there's flashbacks, okay, so there was I'm from Seattle, Washington, which is West Coast in the house, and Digital Underground, Snoop Dogg, all those people, NWA, I listened to them. Yes, they had some political slants to what they were saying, but let's keep it a buck. They were not speaking positively about the women folk at all. Horrible. And I was sitting there bopping my head to it, yeah. And I'm like, but they're talking about me and women folk, so. And I really realized that when I was actually living in Berlin, and I went back to visit the States, and there was somebody that was playing some music, and just listening to the words, it was like Lil' Kim, which is not all the people that I just mentioned, but it was Lil' Kim, and I was like, oh, okay, all right. And she's raw, she is woohoo, and and then I just kind of chuckled to myself, I used to listen to this like nothing, it's just you're listening to the words, but you're not listening to the words. And so then I came back to Germany, and I was in this very posh place. It was I'm not going to say the words, but I'm not going to say where, but it was this very ethical, upscale, sustainable place for clothes.
I could not imagine that in Berlin.
Oh, girl. It was and I was like, oh, okay, this is nice. Then all of a sudden they came on with oh, what is their name? They're from Florida. 2 Live Crew or something like this. Hello. I was like, do y'all know what you're listening to? This is not what you want to have right now. This is what I was thinking in my head. But I was like, I'm in Berlin, Midland, so everybody speaks English. It's fine, So they knew exactly what was playing. But I was like, I used to listen to this and be like, la, 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 nothing of it. But yeah, that's what I would I don't know if I'm necessarily embarrassed of the music. I think I'm embarrassed that was that so clocked out, so removed from what was being said that it didn't even, on the surface anyway, it didn't even affect me. I was just the beat's real nice. The melody's nice. Oh, look, the flow is nice. It's but boo-boo, are you listening to what's being said, sweetie? So yeah.
So did you say the age that you realized that? You said later on at a certain age. Do you remember when that started to?
Not even that long ago, really. Probably like within the last 10 years, I just realized and it's because it came back to me. Like, when I moved on from that music, I just moved on from it, and you don't think anything about it. And you might hear every day, I'm like, oh, whatever happened to whatever rapper or whatever musician you used to listen to. And then, but just recently, within the last 10 years, I was like, I used to listen to some really harsh stuff there. And it was popular. This was not like, niche music that rarely anybody listened to. This was like mainstream music that everybody was listening to, women being like dragged through the mud. And it was like, that's yeah.
Do you think it is also like a depiction, like a true depiction of what was happening? Do you think that in certain societies, I mean, it is actually happening like that and nobody would really withstand that picture and sing with it because they're like, well, that's just reality?
Yeah, I think the people that just thought that it's a cultural thing too. Like there's just culturally, there's some things that are just accepted. And, earlier we were talking about how you can contribute knowingly or unknowingly to something. My dollars went to buying that music. My dollars went to my ears, my spirit, my energy went to that music, playing that music, reciting the lyrics. Like, in some way, I'm contributing to that message being spread about someone who is actually the most hurtful that it would be to is me. Yeah. They're talking about the image of me. Yeah. And the fact that I was so removed to that, and so many people are, it's like, it's mind-blowing actually when you think about it. But when you're younger, you're just like the beat though, the flow. And it's like,
I think it's also not only being younger, it's also about us being at a certain time in humanity being younger. Because to be fair to us, I think there's like this, let's say, woke movement where we are right now thinking about a lot of things in the past 10 years with a different viewpoint. And it's only a few years ago that I started to see myself in a different way and also misogynist opinions and also songs or languages or whatever in a different view. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have listened to that and never said anything against that and was totally okay for me, or it was okay for men to behave a certain way. And I would continue to say, oh, it's just men. It's just the way they are. And I would excuse it because this is how we grew up. So I think it's not only something that has to do with our age, but it has to do with in what time we actually grew up to be older. And right now we have the ability and space to actually be open to different views on that subject. Yeah. And so I guess it's we are also, growing. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned earlier, the younger people pointing out new things and having different ideas. Yes. And I think we can learn so much from them. Oh, I do. Yeah. I do learn so much from that. So maybe it's also that. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. So thank you for those questions. And of course, I have read a little bit about you on your webpage. And on your musical path, you said that you performed at the age of 16 in 21 plus clubs because you couldn't wait. And I first had to think of Tori Amos because I read Tori Amos's Vita many decades ago. And she said something similar. She had a similar experience that she started to play as a young kid or adolescent in clubs, even though they were 21 plus. But first question that comes to my mind is, how did you do that?
Oh, how did I play in clubs?
Yes, being not that age.
Well, my mom was pretty progressive as well in her thought, I think. And I love my mom so much. She's a huge influence in my life. And so, yeah, I come from a family of musicians. And I was like, I think she knew as well as everybody that was in my proximity knew that I was probably going to spend the rest of my life doing music. And why wait? And so I was like, hey, I had a friend in high school who had a brother-in-law that was looking for a singer. And as young as I was, she asked me if I wanted to do it. And so I was like, yeah, but I was 16, 17 at the time. And so I went and I auditioned. Oh, a baby Coreena. Yeah, I went and I auditioned and I got it. And so we had a band. And it was like a top 40 business band, like playing popular music. And so, yeah, and it was like, why wait until I'm 18 to do this? Like, let's go.
So that was possible because of the band having members that are above 21.
Yes. And my mom approved it. She wasn't like, well, no, you're not 18 yet. She was like, listen, get on. In fact, what time are you performing tonight? I'll be there too. You know, make sure you're acting right. But that's.
And were you prepped by your mom or your family to be that, how do you say, have that energy or that bravery to be at stage at that age? I mean, when I think back being like 14 or 13 or 12, I can't say that I would have been that brave, to be on stage.
Yeah.
But you had that. Where do you think does it come from?
Well, I was quite shy. Well, I wouldn't say shy. I was quiet. I was a people observer. I had a lot to say, had a lot of thoughts, but I wasn't willing to share them with a lot of people. And so I did a lot of internal thinking and had a lot of ideas musically, like, I want to be on stage. I want to do all these things. And so it was going to happen, period, point blank. And my mom definitely tried to push me into like, oh, Coreena could sing and sing a song like I was a little jukebox. But and I hated that. I hate it to this day. But yeah, so I think, no, they did not prep me. I just think that it was just something in me that I had to. It wasn't almost like it was a choice. Like, yeah, it was just something that it was about to happen, regardless if I was ready or not. Like, do you see the microphone over there? Get on the mic. Like, I just had this pull. It was pulling me. It always has.
Wow.
Always, since I can remember.
I ask everyone about their personal music love story, I call it. What is your personal music love story? Can you recall that moment when you were a young kid at what XY point in your life at age where you say, wow, music is my path?
This is going to sound silly and goofy, but yes, in the sense of my first song that I ever wrote and produced and sung was at the dinner table.
Aww.
And
it's so cute. I love it.
I still remember because, honey, I love to eat. I don't miss meals. Coreena does not miss meals. That's another thing. People think because I'm vegan that, what's your relationship with food? Like, do you even like, I'm like, you don't know. Like, me and food gets along real well. And always has been that way. My mom always used to say, I'd rather clothe her than feed her. Because she's always eating something. She will eat you out of house and home, honey. That was me. But yeah, so my first knowing that music was going to be my thing was I wrote a song, produced. It's so funny because I think I know this song now to this day, which is crazy. But I had horns. And see, I grew up in an era when music was like these full spectrums of like 4 or 5 minute songs on the radio, where there would be there was a horn section, like a full like horn section. And it's like, anyway, so yeah, it was called I'm Hungry, Let's Eat. That was my first song. And I remember it to this day because then my family started singing it with me. And I was like, oh, you mean I can sing a song and it affects other people too?
Oh, wow.
This is for me. Singing and, affecting all the people around me is for me. So, yeah, that was my first notion.
Do you
that
remember
I would be doing that for the rest of my life?
Do you remember? That's so great. Such a great story. Do you remember at what age that was?
I'd say probably like 8 or 9. Yeah, about 8 or 9.
And I asked you earlier in the rather casual questions about your favorite music and your inspirations. And also here, I'm wondering about your role models. Was Aretha Franklin already one of your role models at that age?
Yeah, and I didn't know. There was a lot of people who influenced me, and I didn't know it because along with just my family too, all my uncles. My uncle Jimmy in particular was a huge influence. My Uncle Ron, seeing the lifestyle that they led, my Uncle Dave, seeing the lifestyle that they led, and seeing that they were musical people and they were happy and they were living their life, sometimes abroad, and not stopping that part of themselves made me feel very inspired. Like I can do it. It was almost, you know how some people think of music as something that is unattainable. Well, I'll just say this. Sometimes musical people, which understandably so, are told socially and within their own family as well that, you know, this is an unattainable goal. Like you should probably go to school and do something else or whatever. That was never the case in my family because I saw the proof that it could be done, and happiness with that proof as well. You know, like it was a real attainable thing that I could touch and smell and hug when they came home from tour and, you know, and have conversations with. So.
And in hindsight now, since you have been doing this path for quite a while, have you ever been exposed to any regrets from your family that you went that path? Was there ever a moment, or are they still rooting for you? And
I think they better still be rooting for me. No, I'm just kidding. No, I definitely think that they are. Yeah. I mean, I think definitely, especially my mom would like me to sit down and be in Seattle and come home, which is what my previous home would be. But they know that music is dragging me around and doing with me as it pleases. I don't know if I'm necessarily completely in control of that, but yeah.
Which music influenced you most back then?
Let's see. What influenced me the most? Ooh. Oh, gosh. I don't know. It's hard to say. I'll say genres. I grew up in church, so gospel. But ironically enough, I didn't even sing that much in my church. It was too much. Too many big personalities, but I did sing some. And definitely soul, definitely R&B, definitely funk. Grew up a lot with my brothers, like listening to a lot of like Earth, Wind and Fire, The Emotions. It's funny because somebody said, "Oh, it sounds like recently. Oh, you sound like you're really influenced by The Emotions," which was like the background singers for Earth, Wind and Fire. And I thought to myself, like, you know, they influenced me and I didn't even know it. Like the people that I used to listen to is who I sound like, but at the time I wasn't trying to sound like them. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It just was so natural because it was so around me, like every day. Like we always had the best. Christmases were the best because of the music. Yeah. You know, stuff like this. It's like
your music.
Yeah.
I mean, where you come from. To be honest.
You mean you didn't have like the Four Tops playing and, you know, Donny Hathaway? And, yeah, that's the stuff that we had. And, honey, it was, I used to be like, yes, this is the jam. I mean, I would want to listen to that music even if it wasn't Christmas. You know what I mean? Yep. So the Four Tops, yeah, all that stuff. But
well, funny enough, you know, I witnessed myself in the past years that I have the tendency to rather play Christmas music from the US instead of German Christmas music.
It's the bestest.
Right? The crooners. I mean, this era, it's just like, so cozy, you're like, so cute.
Come on now. Waking up to that in the morning. And then you got presents too and all the food. Because, you know, food, you know, how important food is to me. So, yeah.
And when did you or how have you found your musical home in IDM and trip hop and soul?
Have I found my home in that?
I've read that on your homepage.
Yes, I have found my home in some instances for sure. I think exploring alternative sounds really have influenced a lot of the music that I've done, and it came from that world. I did, as you know, grew up singing a lot of things that were popular music, and I say that in quotes, popular. So a lot of my like songwriting form came from that type of music. But as far as like the musical landscape and sounds that I kind of pulled from, definitely came from that world for sure. Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier that Björk has a strong influence on you. Is that the element of electronic music that from her that you put into your music that inspired you to go to that direction?
Yes.
And what else kind of like IDM and trip hop bands would you say have maybe influenced you or people?
From back in the day, like Massive Attack, Porter's Head. Radiohead, even from back in the day, like,
Right.
you know, they're like, no, like if you listen to some of their earlier stuff, it's like, oh, it's rocky and it's very, very much so similar to what the Seattle music scene is known for, which is grunge. So it does have this kind of grungy vibe, which of course, being from Seattle, I know a lot about.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are some of the artists that I definitely have pulled from.
And do you still continue to produce music in that direction?
Well, I have some elements of that for sure, but I have found that recently I am really feeling 80s synthy kind of stuff.
Ah.
Yeah, I'm really feeling like like Genesis and like Sting and like even like the movies are influential to me too, like The Breakfast Club and like you know, all of these type of things, all things 80s. And for me, it's not because I think like a year or two ago, I guess like, what is this Netflix movie that everybody loves, Stranger Things?
Oh, yeah.
Or like, you know, the 80s is always in style. Everybody's always trying to bite on the 80s. But I think what is really interesting is that I grew up in that era. Yeah. So when I say I'm influenced by it, I really literally mean that I grew up on that kind of music.
Yeah.
Like,
and absurd enough, I recall that my former host mom from the States, she asked me once when they were playing like oldies, you know, from the 60s, 70s, and 80s and so on. And I continued to sing with those songs, you know, and she's like, girl,
how do you know these?
How do you know the lyrics to all those songs? You know, and I was like, well, it was good music.
It was good music. I love it. Human League. Are you kidding me? Like, oh my gosh, like that stuff is still dope and relevant to this day.
But also, it's like we listened to the radio and it just ingrained in our brains, not even knowing what they were singing about, and you just kept repeating it, and liking the music, growing up with it. And not having the choice of maybe listening to music of Spotify or whatever. So now I completely blank out the modern music almost, like that's popular in the charts. And I don't know if you have experienced that problem, but do you sometimes feel like you don't know any contemporary music?
I really don't. The only thing that saves me is that I teach voice, and sometimes my younger students, they'll be like, because I have this thing where I have them come and sing a song that they are artists. I need to get into, you know, what they're into. So I ask them, who are they into? Who are they listening to? Who influences them? This type of thing. And I learn about the people from them because I'm like, I don't know who these people are. I just now learned about Billie Eilish maybe like 4 or 5 years ago when I first got to Germany. Like my student was like, I like Billie Eilish. And I was like, okay. And then back in the States, I had a ton of students. So I was on it because of them. You know, I had like 50, 60 students, but because of that, they all would tell me, you know, who was in. Now I don't have that many students, so I rely on what they're telling me. And sometimes I'm going out of town, I have tours, I have all these different things going on. So I kind of don't know what's going on with pop music that deep. Yeah. I don't know that deep.
I feel you.
Yeah.
So you already mentioned it, and of course I've prepared a question since I read that you're from Seattle. And has that music scene of your hometown Seattle influenced you in any way? You have briefly mentioned that indeed it has, and you can say that, right?
Yes, for sure.
Do you put that into your music as well?
Oh yeah, I think I definitely have a brooding kind of like, listen, my spirit instrument is guitar. I don't play guitar. It's piano and voice for me. Mostly voice. I play piano to like, you know, get myself along. But, you know, brooding guitars and like sad, you know, rainy day kind of like depressing music actually is not depressing to me. It's deep and thoughtful and full of like intrigue and darkness and lightness. And, you know, this is kind of what I grew up on, which is like that grungy kind of stuff. So yeah, and not only the music, but also the lifestyle, because I think what's interesting is that being from Seattle, it's not just like, oh, this grunge music is a thing that I listen to. It's also a lifestyle. It's like how I used to dress, and, you know, and it does relate to the environment and the grayness and kind of like the droopiness of Seattle. I call Seattle droopy, but you know what I'm saying? Like
Starbucks life.
Yeah, yeah. Like all of
Drinking
that is
coffee.
like embedded into the DNA of this kind of music, you know? So it definitely has influenced me for sure.
And have you witnessed a change in the music scene in Seattle, or would you say that it still continues till to today, that the grunge era kind of like forms or shapes the music scene of Seattle? Or would you describe the Seattle music scene as more diverse,
It's
musically
definitely more
wise?
diverse now, I think, yeah. I mean, I haven't been there and only for 4 years, but 4 years is a long time in music. In any creative field, if you remove yourself from something for 4 years, you go back to it and it feels very, very different. But when I was there, it definitely had different influences in grunge. Grunge was something that Seattleites, I think, in the music industry, I'm going to maybe get shots fired when I'm about to say this, but I feel like a lot of people do hold on to that as an identity, but it's no longer the identity of Seattle at all, I don't think. They hold on to that identity because it feels good to be known for something and be put on the map for something musically. But there is definitely some like rap and alternative music and like alternative genres like drone and like noise that are coming out of there that's also very kind of cool. So because Seattle isn't this like place in the Northwest that isn't accessible and kind of not as well known. It's become more popular over the years. So there's a little bit of there's California's coming up. There's all kinds of people going there and changing the landscape of it, which is also changing the landscape of the music.
Would you say, I mean, from your own experience, of course, would you say that the music scene is very open to new people? Or is it also, because I think that every city has kind of like its own vibe, especially in the music scene. I could say that for the Berlin scene, for example, it depends on which kind of like music you go into. But I could definitely say that cities have like their own kind of like gatekeeper vibes or whatever. Would you say that the Seattle music scene has something like that?
Gatekeeper vibes?
Or like, it's like to keep people, like certain people out or...
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Well, I feel like it does. I mean, there are darlings of music and then there are darlings of music. And usually the darlings of music have to appease to a bigger audience. And so when you do things that are a little bit more niche and may not be the popular view at the moment, then you're going to be kept out, you know? Or if people are not used to seeing a lot of people, for some reason, especially with music, if you are doing something that is not being done, people aren't convinced until other people do it too, you know? So I think that there is definitely a tendency to feel like, well, that's cool, but I don't really get it until somebody else does it and then they get it, you know?
Oh, okay.
And I feel like right now, before I left, I felt like there were a lot of, I can only speak from my experience. So I shouldn't say a lot, but there's definitely a couple of Black women that are doing alternative things, that are producing their things, that are in different genres of music. And I feel like when I had first started doing some stuff that was a little bit different than what was expected of me, that people thought it was cool. The idea was cool.
Yeah.
But is it cool enough to go to your shows and support you and pay money to get into the door?
Yeah.
Is it cool enough to buy this really cool vinyl that you spent your money and energy on? Like, you know what I mean? Not so much. And not until there was a couple of other people. And I'm not saying, by no means am I trying to say, I was the first Black woman producer in electronic music in Seattle. That is not what I'm saying.
You know.
Okay? Definitely not what I was trying to say. But what I am saying is that when I did decide to do it and I looked around to the left and to the right, it wasn't a whole bunch of me's.
Yeah.
And I knew that, which was actually one of the reasons why I chose it.
Yeah.
Because I thought that people wanted to hear something different and different perspectives and different angles. And again, the idea is real cool. But when you're not used to having something look a certain way and sound a certain way, are you going to support it in the way that it needs to be supported?
And is it now accepted? Or are you welcome there with your music?
For sure, yeah.
Who do you think or do you know a person that does similar music that also helped for people to be more open to the music that you did or that you do?
I don't really know anyone. I just see faces because I'm, like I said, I'm disconnected a bit. So my finger is not on the pulse, but I'll see like pictures and articles and like festivals that will have a lineup that looks a little bit more diverse, which makes me happy. But I haven't gotten into them as artists. I don't know, because I've kind of a bit moved on from that place. Not all the way, because I still have my feet in some of the landscapes of what I used to do, but I've moved a little bit to the left a little bit from that. I'm like, okay, that was cool. And which I think you should always do as an artist. You should always be progressing to, for me, I'll speak for myself. I'm not going to say all artists should always do this. That's, for me, it's important to be changing and challenging myself and being flexible to do things that I haven't done before. I don't always want to be the Black girl that produces and I'm an electronic artist and that's it, you know? But what's funny is that in music, you do have to get somewhere and have identity and stick with it, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to make you stick out. But then at the same time, if you're not progressing, then are you sticking out because you want to be recognized? Or, I don't know. Those are the things I think about all the time as a musical.
Which is important.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's so many musicians out there and also successful musicians. So it's always a thing, you know. Sometimes you have bands. I can, for example, think of the first thing that comes to my mind is Red Hot Chili Peppers. Because when you talk about certain subjects, I usually start thinking with you.
Yeah.
And then I think about this whole identity thing. It's like sometimes you have certain bands that you expect to grow. And sometimes there's like people that get annoyed that the next album sounds like the one before and the one before and the one before. So that would be something that I would compare it to what you've just been talking about.
Yeah.
That it's kind of weird. You want musicians, not you personally, but I have the feeling as if sometimes people have the wish that the bands have their unique sound, but progress within that unique sound and don't keep repeating things over and over and over again.
Yes.
So I guess that's kind of like what.
That's the point. Yeah, it's like, yes, I still do this, but I have progressed and become this other thing too. You know, it's not the same Coreena as, 4, 5, 10 years ago.
And since you wanted to progress and change, is that the reason why you've moved to LA eventually?
Los Angeles?
Yeah.
I moved from LA to Seattle.
Okay. But so that means you have lived in LA before.
Yes. Oh, you mean like, yeah. So after college, I did go to LA and I was with my significant other.
Hello.
Who I'm no longer with. And they were a musician as well. And so we wanted to go to the land of milk and honey, or what we thought was milk and honey for music. Listen, New York was an option, but my God, I don't know. I think around the world, everybody feels this way about New York, but New York seemed really tough. It seemed like it was harsh and rough and stuff. And we were like, that's cool, but let's go to LA because the sun is there. And, it seems a little bit more open to what it is that we wanted to do. Yeah. So that's why we decided on LA. It was LA or New York.
But then, was it a land of milk and honey?
Nah.
Yeah, that's what I hear too from many people.
I mean, I think that, we want to talk about gatekeepers. Ooh, honey.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good Lord. I think that it's definitely, my experience is not everybody's experience. Sometimes I talk to people and they want to, people are really like passionate about different places and how they feel about them. And I don't want to invalidate anyone's experience, but it wasn't a good look for me. I wasn't. I mean, I stayed there for almost 10 years. There was a lot of good things about California and Los Angeles, I think, but it can be exhausting, always trying to feel like you're fighting against these gatekeepers. I feel like LA can be, I don't know. It's a lot to have to always feel like you're fighting against people keeping you out. I got tired of that. So I was like, okay, it's time to go. Like, and plus I'm not, it's, it's a lot more like Los Angeles is like proper, LA proper is like really from Long Beach, or Long Beach is really far from like where I was, like Orange County, or like these are not cities that are like, 20, 30 minutes away. Yeah. Like here in Berlin, I live in a place where everything is accessible within 30 minutes. Yeah. And then I complain about getting to Neukölln in 45 minutes.
Oh, I know.
On a train.
It's me. That's me.
But LA, it's like, girl, you would be lucky to get from one city to the next. I mean, you're jumping on freeways, and some people are like, what is that? What relevance does that have to do with it? Well, if you're living in one place and you're trying to be a live musician, trying to perform in all these different places within a week's time, and it's taken like 2 hours to get from one place to the next, literally. Yes. What you doing? I mean, I'm talking about one way 2 hours, by the way. Yes. So it's like, what are you doing? And then like, where's your community? I felt everything was just kind of like all over the place and misplaced. Like, where's the community? Where's the people? I don't know, honey. Yeah, it wasn't for me. But like I said, the sun was nice. I have family down there.
Have you ever had a car that exploded because of the sunlight in the summer?
No. I did drive around though a whole summer without AC. One summer, that was like the broke days, But LA was something special, but it wasn't for me. It wasn't for Coreena.
And what about the other music cities? Like, what's it called? Motown, and or like in the middle, in the Midwest.
Those. I didn't decide to go
New
there.
Orleans.
New Orleans would have been good. Okay, so when I decided to come to Berlin, well, first of all, I was like, I always wanted to live abroad. And I was like, I want to go somewhere else other than the United States.
Yeah.
Hello, dear listeners. It's me, Zoe, with a little advertisement on my own behalf. So far, this podcast has been completely produced by me from back to front. If you want to support my work, you can find all the information and links in the podcast description. I would like to point out that a podcast lives from the fan community. So please share, like, and love my podcast for all it's worth, or visit my page on SteadyHQ and become a member. Thank you very much in advance for your applause and appreciation. Yours truly, Zoe.
But I did consider 3 places. One was Austin, Texas. Another was Canada, Alberta, I believe. One was Berlin. Another was the Netherlands, Amsterdam. Yeah. All for music. I said, I'm going somewhere for music. And
it's not London?
Not London, no. I don't know why I didn't consider London.
Especially
it was never on my radar musically. It was never on my radar. Okay. And so Austin, Texas, because everybody said it's been similar to Seattle, and it's like this very liberal, cool, hip place. But I couldn't get out of my mind that it was the South. I was like, no, I can't. I can't do the South. Here. So, and plus it was still the United States, and it wasn't fulfilling. It was only fulfilling half of my dream. I wanted to go somewhere musically different as well as out of the country. So then this is why I looked at Canada. And I was like, the French-speaking part, I heard that it was this really cool hip scene for like electronica, which would also have been cool. And they speak French.
Bonjour, Coreena.
Yeah, exactly, which would have been also cool. But then I was like, it's another country, but I kind of don't feel like it's that far away from Seattle, Washington. And I wanted to feel like I was in another country, like away. It's still the same continent, though. It's the Americas. And I was like, let's see, Amsterdam. And then I was like, maybe Amsterdam. But then, just like Berlin, it gets dark. But I had read that, people aren't out as much in the winter. Like, people aren't like, the creative community kind of boards up and shuts down a little bit.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And so then I was like, when it gets really cold and dark, and yes, they have performance venues and stuff that's open. Obviously, people are out doing music during the cold and the winters, but it's not like how is it here in Berlin. And Berlin is just popping 24/7. Doesn't matter. Get your Gluehwein. Oh, it's cold. Well, get some Gluehwein, girl, because we still going to be out. Like, they don't care. Like, they're partying until 10 o'clock the next day. You go out on a Friday, come home on a Sunday. So these are the stories that the folklore that I heard.
And even, And it's not even a folklore.
No, it's not.
Honestly.
But it was for me when I didn't know. But now I'm like, oh, they were really for real.
Yeah. And if you like go to a coffee place in winter and it's like, oh, well, yeah, of course they have blankets. And then you see people like with like 5 degrees Celsius sitting outside, like sipping their coffee, reading newspaper.
Home.
I don't know, writing in a notebook. And I'm like, oh, I'm freezing. Like, they're like sitting outside.
I'm writing a poem.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just, and it's cold outside, 7 degrees. It's really, so I was like, this is it for me. I want Berlin. I had decided already. I had in my mind moved on. I was physically in Seattle, but I had moved to Berlin, and I had never been there. I had never been here. I'm here now. But I had never been to Berlin. So I told a friend, this is where I'm going. And we took a trip because I wanted to confirm all of my thoughts about it. And it was everything that I thought it was going to be. And so here I am 4 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you started as a music teacher at school, right?
Yeah, you got to survive creatively.
Right.
Like, this is the thing that messes people up when they come here, creative people. I think they're like, let's go and be creative in Europe, like Americans. Let's do it. And you can do all that, but at the end of the day, you still need to pay them bills. Mm-hmm. See, I'm grown. I think that I'm a big girl age. I'll say that. I feel like the advantage of me coming at the age, even though sometimes I'm like, I regret not coming years ago, but I feel like the good thing is that I came when it was supposed to come, number one. Mm-hmm. That's all. And then number two is that I had some life experiences that I was able to draw from. Yeah. And sometimes, I'll speak for myself, when I was younger, like when I was in college, it was a struggle to like figure out where to live. What is a contract? What am I supposed to know? What am I supposed to ask for? Am I supposed to have this amount of money down? Like, that's a lot. Like, there's a lot of just basic life lessons that I had already been through a couple times. So by the time I moved here, and I'm not saying the transition was like super smooth, but I wasn't afraid of any of the challenges that I felt like was going to come to my door because I had been through a lot of things already. So I was just like, okay, well, this is called adulting. And you want to get a place, you just go get a place. You know what I mean? Yeah. It wasn't a big secret on how to get a place for me. It wasn't. So I do feel like the responsibility of Berlin could be hard and it could hit you and it could be tough. Like the living situation here, you may not experience this, but if you're an expat, I don't know.
Everybody.
Shit's hard.
No, I mean, even people that come from Berlin.
Sorry, I'm cussing.
No worries. Beep. But
stuff is hard, you know?
Yeah, for
it's
everyone.
not easy. It's not, you're not just going to pop up and just, I'm going to get a place now. You know, you need to know somebody who knows somebody. You need to know what the system is and all of these different things. So that can, especially as a creative person who just wants to, you know, be musical, that's a bit much. Yeah. And it could be a huge turnoff to where you just want to just kind of play around all day.
But then in comparison to what I hear, what you pay for in LA, for example, for an apartment, or even in the United States in general, I mean, it's still comparatively cheap to live in Berlin.
No, yeah, the lifestyle, like the amount of money. Like I'm about to go back to the States actually this week. I'm not looking forward to I got a little sticker shock when I got back. I was like, wow, this stuff is like, this is how we living. I don't know how we paying rent. So that, yes, of course. But I think when you are coming from a different country, it's just not as easy as you think it's going to be. But I'm not afraid of hard work. I never have been. And I don't mean it as an insult like some people are afraid of hard work. What I mean is ain't nothing ever came. Like a breeze. Like, oh my gosh, I just did this and it was a breeze. Like I was expecting the challenges. And because it was that way, I was like, okay, I'm ready. Let's go, you know?
Cool. And of course, I was going to ask you what made you go to Berlin, and you have already answered that question.
Oh, extensively.
Yes, and that is awesome. And now you've been here for 4 years, if I recall it right. And how would you describe the music scene in Berlin for yourself? How have you experienced it? Is there a difference between Seattle and Berlin?
I'm still trying to grasp the music industry here in Berlin. I used to feel like it was very heavily like singer-songwriter based because I kept running into these things where people were like guitar and singer guitarists. And it was like, oh, okay. And I'm not a singer guitarist, because I came here I was an electronic artist 4 years ago, like proper electronic artist. And I was like, that's another huge reason why I chose Berlin is because of the electronic music scene.
True.
And, but then when I got here, there's so many different genres to electronic music. True. And I don't think that the genre that I was in was something that I was really paying attention as being something that was really huge here.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I'm trying to grasp it still. And I think what is cool about Berlin is the acceptance of different is really cool. Mm-hmm. And so that seems like something I want to lean into more. But as far as like, oh yeah, honey, here's the Berlin scene. I just feel like there's all of these different scenes within a scene. And it's a bit fragmented feeling to me. Like,
definitely. And
I don't know how with this fragmented feeling, like where I am fitting in with all of this fragmentation, And I don't know if it's because so many people come from so many different places here. They like come here and they make their home here. And so there's not like this solid, like this is this and this is not that, which is also okay, I guess. But I don't know. It's,
I mean, one thing that
comes
to my mind with the electronic music scene, this is how I kind of like how I see it or experience it is that first thing that comes to my mind is that the electronic music scene in Berlin is more focused on DJing. And I'm pretty sure you are live producing electronic music when you perform. Mm-hmm. And I rarely see that unless you go to a concert. Mm-hmm. But of course, the electronic music scene is huge in Berlin. But this is like clubs, dance clubs, where you listen to DJ music. And I think that could be probably one thing that then you've witnessed as well or experienced as well. And I don't know if you've experienced it too, but one thing that comes to my mind, if I would describe the Berlin music scene, and I think it's with all the arts in Berlin, I have the feeling is that there's so much being offered to Berliners that they're completely overwhelmed by what they can see. That's a good point.
Maybe that's why I feel like everybody's all over the place. Like, I just feel like it's so like, it's this, it's that, it's that. Oh, no, it's this. Mm-hmm. It's just like fighting for attention or something. I don't know. It's just, it's a lot.
And also with the audience, that I can see that in the audience. I mean, I've laughed about it when I was when I was 16, 17, going to concerts. And you know how this is a vocal recording, but I can show you how I experience Berliners listening to music. Basically, I'm just bobbing the head lightly. When I was younger, I was like, what the heck? This music is freaking good. And it feels like the people have listened to everything. They can listen to music every day if they want. So it doesn't kick them anymore. It's like if you have people coming from the outside, they're freaking out. It's like, it's a concert. It's really good music. Oh my God. And then Berlin is just like, it's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. It's just something that I have seen a lot in the audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, I thought it was because Berliners were listening intently that they were. I thought they were just like, what is it? Yeah, we got you. It's like, no, we're just bored. Or bored.
Or, heard that before, been there, done that. I don't know. Yeah. I think it's just like that there's so much out there.
There's so much,
and available.
Yeah. It's another thing, too, is, I don't know, it's just, like, somebody asked me, what do I want the audience to be like when they're listening to my music? And I said, I want a little bit of two things. I want people to listen and be still and be like really engrossed in the music. But then I also want them to have fun and, move around a little bit and shake their behinds a little bit, if it suits them. And I want the same experience. Like, I went to go see Portishead, whom I told you I have been influenced and love, live. And they had, now listen, you're not going to come yet to any of my live performances and have like a big orchestra behind me. Yeah. But I went and they had this orchestration and then they had a DJ and then they had like a full band and it was just, and then they did their thing. And of course it was this really cool, like a mix of trip hop and rock and like it's just really awesome, brooding, lovely music.
Yeah.
And sometimes the audience would sit and listen. Like sometimes, audience being me, I would just be sitting there and like, wow, this is really cool. But then sometimes I did want to get up and move around a little bit too. So a little bit of both is what I want. And I feel like sometimes here, people expect me to come out and be like, yeah. So I'm not just kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, yes, sometimes I can have a big personality if I'm excited and all this stuff. And if it's that type of song, but for my original music, I'm not like a clap your hands all. And I don't know. It's just, I don't know what people want. And I'm trying to just do what I want and then give them something that they can enjoy as well. But like you said, it's like I can't put my finger, the pulse. What is the main pulse of Berlin? I don't know. Is it like a get up and hype people up, or is it sit and be thoughtful and go, yeah, this is really cool? I'm not quite sure. I'm still learning that 4 years later. But in my defense, COVID did happen. And so we have to say 4 years later, this is really like 3 years later, like 3.5 years, 2 years really. Yeah, 2 years of my 4 years have been chunked out by,
definitely.
By the big C, I should say.
Despite, of course, the regular things that you have to deal with when coming to a different city, you are creative, you are a musician, and my heart starts beating thinking about me being here, knowing no one, and wanting to make it in the music world in a different city. Where do you freaking start? Did you look into the newspaper? Did you go and check out Facebook communities, Instagram communities, and said, hi, I'm Coreena. I just moved here. I want to do music. Can I perform? I don't know. For me, it's just like, like if I put myself in your position, like how do you start getting into the music scene?
How
did you?
The exact same way I did in the States, which is I want to perform. Where's the clubs? And that's the first thing I did. And so I started asking around. I got a lot of answers. But then I just went online and Googled. Google can be your best friend as far as information. And so I looked up a couple places and I just contacted them, got my little email out and said, hey, my name is this, and I'm from here, and this is the kind of music I do. And thankfully, I had a background of actually having a catalog of music and, putting some kind of representation online. So I would just send them that, and then continuing that same process with a lot of different people. And I got a couple gigs, and I started to meet people at those gigs because I would do gigs with other musicians, so I would get to know them and ask them, what are they doing, and how are they doing it, and what's the deal. And so I didn't know anybody. I didn't know one person, though. I still know this person. We both went to college together. He's actually also a musician. And so he was helpful and has been helpful. And you just kind of get out there and you put I'm going to say one of my least favorite words, vulnerable. You become vulnerable to the people. And, they give you what you give them. And so there have been quite a few people that have been, especially in some of the gigs that I'm doing now, very giving and very open and not gatekeeping at all. Like, that's okay. One thing I have to say about Berlin that's really cool is that people are at this place where they're just freely giving information to each other without feeling like, oh, you're going to take my stuff, or I don't want to give you my information because of whatever reasons in my mind right now. You ask somebody, they're going to give you the answer if they have it. Yeah. Musically and creatively, people are very helpful, very helpful. And that's been awesome for me.
Wow.
So
that is great to hear about Berlin from somebody else. Tell me a little bit about your best moments in your music career so far. I recall, of course, the concert that you've mentioned earlier at Boston School in your senior year. Is there, like, on your path ongoing after college, what were your best moments so far as well?
I think my best moments were right after I did part ways with my musical life partner, that I realized that I can do this on my own. This person was also my producer. Yes. And I felt very lost at that time, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And what was really cool is that I had a conversation with a family member, and they said, wait a minute, you went to college for music, you know theory, you know all these things. Why? I'm confused about why you feel like somebody else's not being there is stopping you from getting to whatever you want to get to.
Yes.
And that was my like ding, ding, ding moment, my light bulb moment. So yeah, that was my best moment, is when I figured out that I don't need, it's nice to have the desire or to have somebody with you on the journey, but it's not necessary.
Yeah.
And so that was really good for me to realize.
Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And now the other way around. What was the toughest challenge? I mean, I would probably say your last answer includes also challenge.
I was about to say, ironically, the challenges of that is realizing like, yay, the idea of that sounds so cool. But then the challenge is actually doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's actually getting, nowadays, so awesome to be able to have access to build your own studio, knowing how that studio works, being your own producer, having an ear to be able to listen to yourself and give yourself critiques without being too close to it, and, you know, producing yourself, songwriting yourself, all of those different things sound really cool, but it actually takes time and energy and research and a lot of things that require alone time.
Yeah.
And so those are times where you can't go out and just be like, I want to go out and kick it and do whatever. You know, you have to be present with yourself.
Yeah.
And so those are challenges that have been, that have definitely changed my creative journey.
And so I was going to ask you after that, of course, what are the 3 points of advice you would give to upcoming artists, female artists especially? I suppose what you've just said earlier also includes that you need to have some alone time maybe,
mm-hmm.
or is there anything else? Because I don't want to take it away.
Mm-hmm.
Are there 3 different things that you would advise, especially female musicians, to pine for in their career and be POC?
Mm-hmm. I think definitely having the block of, and not even realizing it for me, I do realize it, but internalized patriarchal views of myself
mm-hmm.
and where I fit into music. Those can be blocks that have and can stop you from progressing, because you're just like, oh, I don't belong in this space, or I shouldn't be doing this, or maybe this isn't for me, or, you know, and those are like external influences, really, because if you wake up and you feel like you want to do X, Y, and Z, do X, Y, and Z. So definitely don't get in your own way. Mm-hmm. And I have gotten in my own way because of the things that I internalized to be someone else's truth as my own truth.
Yeah.
Also, don't be afraid to be vulnerable. The other end of the spectrum of that. Vulnerability is not my favorite word. But as a creative person, that's pretty ironic because I'm putting my most personal, intimate self out there. So it's like, girl, how? But I mean, you do want to keep a piece of yourself. For me, this is how I talk my way into being okay with being vulnerable. It's okay to keep a piece of me to myself.
Yeah.
Everything that is not for everybody when it comes to me. So it's okay. But then don't hold all of it to my chest, you know, or else what are we doing here? You might as well not be creative and share your anything with anybody if you don't want to share it. That's the whole point of being vulnerable, right? Or sharing it is you're giving something of yourself. So, And what else? I think that's about it. And then the first thing that I had said, which was, what was it that I said? I can't remember. See, this is what I'm saying. Sometimes I'm like, la, 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 because I'm really just speaking from my heart. Yeah, but I know I named 3 things. I think you said name 3 or a couple things. Yeah.
That's all right. I mean, it has all been very informative already, and I think everybody can take something out of it, whatever you have said already in experiences. So we have met briefly about a month ago during a think tank at a music conference in Berlin called Most Wanted Music. What was the reason for you being there, and how have you experienced that conference?
My experience was good. I had a good time. And the reason I went to the think tank is because I was really wanting to know what the current pulse of women in the industry and the perspective here was. Because I have my American point of view.
Yes.
So I wanted to know, what are the people here thinking? What's the perspective here? What's the dealio? And and I was pleasantly surprised that some people were really open and willing and wanting to think outside the box and seeing where the problems are, seeing where the issues is, and also working to change it. You know, it's not enough to sit around and talk all day about the things, but it's like, what are we actively doing to make the changes that we want to see, or be the change that we want to see? So that's why I went.
It's true. I mean, I've experienced that too. I've looked into it now during the past 1.5 years, and I witnessed the same thing, that there's a lot of people being open to what needs to change and addressing it. But at the same time, it still seems like it's a long road to go, because even the women that I've met that have been in the business for many years, they're talking about continuous challenges, like really top-notch challenges to get through, for them being already in the business for so many years. And so sometimes it's a little bit frustrating, I think, because it's just have to have such a long breath.
Yeah. And then also on the indie level, because I'm an independent artist, so this all feels and sounds great on an indie level, but I feel like there isn't a trickle up or trickle down effect. I don't know which one we call it. It would be a trickle up because, hierarchical way, we wouldn't be on the independence, not on the top. But, the trickle up effect is not really happening, because I really don't see a whole lot. There's a lot of gripes and a lot of things that I have to say about, the extended music community here in Germany in particular, when it comes to popular music and representation there. They're very far away from what I feel like would be a wholesome, healthy representation of what's going on musically, and it's just not there at all. But that's just, I'm not in the popular world. I've brushed shoulders with it for sure. But I'm not part of that world. So.
And when you got the chance to speak at the think tank, I was intrigued by the experiences and wishes that you have shared during the think tank. And when you think back to that moment and share with us what you would like to see change in the music industry, what would a change for the better need in order to become real in your point of view?
Definitely paying artists what they're worth, especially Black women. And I'm going to speak from that because that's what I am.
Yes.
Pay us what we're worth. And Black people and women in particular pay us what we're worth. Because I can say that people aren't being paid what they're worth.
Yeah.
And that makes me quite sad.
It's still, I mean, I didn't know that, but they've mentioned at the conference in the music industry, there's, as of now, still a 25% gender pay gap. And that's not even, mentioning the pay gap between BPOC people and so on. It's just the gender pay gap. And it's crazy.
It is crazy. And I hear so many, I've participated in so many things where it's like, what are they offering? They're paying what? And they want how many people? And they want us to do what?
Yeah.
And that's a whole other subject that I can get into. But so that decentering white people in multiple genres. And we kind of had that conversation when we talked about a specific genre earlier. I think that's super important to do, because when you look the way that I do and you do the kind of music that I do, it's not so exciting to some people. It's not worth a whole lot of money to some people. Yet my contribution historically and presently is important. Yeah, but you don't want to compensate me for that. And you don't want to decenter me from it as well. But you want to take the joy and the excitement of it. But you want to take me out of it. Yeah. You want to take the Black out of Black music.
Yeah.
So I want to see that change. That's something that is actually, happening all over. But I do see this here in Berlin as well.
Yeah. And also you've shared with us that which you're not the first person to share that with me, and it's not like I've never heard it before, but you've shared with us also at that time that you feel like people don't respect your work in a way, and they don't expect you being the author of your music in total. Do you think that it has already changed? Have you experienced a change to the more positive, or is it still kind of the same way that you're still being doubted in your abilities, and that, for example, people really doubt that you have written that music?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. People doubt that whatever contribution other than the voice, which in itself is a great it's wonderful to just sing the song too.
Yeah.
Not to take away from that, but then you're writing and producing it too. It's like it's almost because in music, the singer has been taken advantage of quite a bit.
Yeah.
And usually the people that are making the money are the people running the businesses, writing the music and producing the music. Those are the money makers.
True.
And if you're in those positions as well, there is a certain implication of intellect that you have. And so you can't very well have that type of intellect as well, can you? Which is hugely insulting. It's it's like you can't do that too. So there's definitely a doubt with that. And it's like, for me, it would be one thing if it began and end with, give me my props, because that's what it could sound like that. It could sound like I'm just like, well, people should be given their props. That's not the beginning and end of it. People being given their props is also people being paid, like I mentioned before, paid their worth, and which is really important. Listen, I don't want to be in a capitalistic society either, but I'm not on a mountain where I'm not participating in that capitalistic society that I don't want to exist. Yeah. We're here. Let's keep it real. We're here. And while we're here trying to change it, that doesn't mean I shouldn't be respected and compensated for what my worth is. That's so very important. It's just on a very human level.
I hope that nobody is going to be approached towards as an artist and be doubted in their capabilities. And is there something else that you would like to see as a musician?
I would like to see Black people and people from marginalized communities be in positions of power within the music industry. A lot of times we are doing something creative, but I also want us to be A&R, be the managers, be employed, or actually have labels as well. Yeah. But, be running the labels in a way other than contributing to the creative aspect, which is great as well. Yeah. But then also the ones that are making the decisions for the industry and for the companies would be something I would like to see more of. Actually.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your insights on the industry
sure.
and what you would like to see change. Now, you already, earlier I introduced you as a singer, songwriter, and music producer, but you've also written that you went to acting and modeling. Has that to do with your time being in LA? That you have been in LA?
Well, acting I have been doing for a while, actually. Even when I was in high school, I was it Diana? Dorothy? Well, there is something called The Wiz. That's like the Black version of The Wizard of Oz. And I played in this as well as many other productions. And I actually was going to go to Cornish in Seattle, Washington, which is a performing arts school, and not Berklee College of Music, which is a music school, but decided to strictly go into music because I was also interested in the performing arts, generally speaking.
Yes.
So I've been acting for a while, and I think as a musician, we do a lot of acting on stage anyways, to be quite honest with you, for those nights that we spoke about earlier that we're not feeling it so much.
True.
So, yeah. And then as far as the modeling aspect, I just wanted to see more representation of women who are unambiguously Black that look like me. I find that a lot of times when there is cause for a Black woman in any kind of movie or something like this, all of a sudden no one can find any that look like me. They would rather have one that's a little bit more palatable, a little bit more with the less stronger features of myself. One that looks a little bit ambiguous, that can relate to a lot of different people and a lot of different people can relate to, I guess. I don't know. But all of a sudden there's this like amnesia of Black actresses that look like me. Unless we are, in certain roles that people are used to us being in. So instead of being on the side saying, oh, I'm tired of seeing this, or I don't want to see that, I try to get involved to be the change that I want to see. So this is what modeling and acting as well for me is. It's more, again, here we go. It's like an act of social injustice, I guess some people would say. But it is a form of creative outlet as well, for sure. But yeah, it's also a radical way of me putting out there what I want to see.
Without hesitation and any sort of imposter syndrome, which I experience a lot when I talk to women, especially in the creative field. Which of your own music would you say are you most proud of? And is there any album, for example, or any song that you are certainly most proud of and is your favorite?
You're going to do favorites. Fallen Light, which was something I recently wrote. Well, it was recent as I was writing. That was been released anyway. That's one of my favorites. Cocoa Dreams is one of my favorites. I think why it's one of my favorites is because it embodies a little bit of my influences very heavily in a way that I'm coming to my own, I think. So Fallen Light is like a trip hop type of vibe. And Cocoa Dreams is like an 80s kind of vibe. And I just said earlier on that those are the two things that I've come from and kind of morphing into. And I feel like at this time, it's at the height of maturity for songwriting in those genres, in those two songs thus far. So I'm really proud of those two. I mean, I like a lot of things that I do, but
you should. Yes, you should.
But I think that, and I think, like I had a project called the Femme series that I released about 3 years ago.
Yes.
And all of those songs, they were, to me, a release of different femme, quote unquote, femme archetypes that either are over the top or socially have been made out to be one thing. And I just wanted to explore what that meant musically. And so all those songs for me are really kind of close to my heart, actually. And those two songs are from the Femme series. So.
And where can you listen to them? Where do we find you, Coreena Brown, with your artist name, Coreena?
Well, we can go to CoreenaMusic.com. That would be great to popularize that. I'm all over all the social medias, and I have the same handle for everything, Coreena Music. So I do have a YouTube channel that I've kind of abandoned, but I will be doing that more soon this year. I haven't written down. I told you earlier, on adulthood, off camera, or not off camera, but off audio, I guess you could say, that I love lists and I love lists. Now I'm thinking about it. Nothing about YouTube is on the list, so I have to put that on there, I guess. Yeah. Oops. But yeah, it's you can find me on all the handles: Facebook, YouTube, Bandcamp, SoundCloud, Instagram. All of that is just all Coreena Music.
I almost don't dare to say it, but it seems like the pandemic is almost over. So where can we see you in the future?
Oh, goodness. Well, I am doing a gospel choir actually in and around Germany until the 19th of February for a few weeks. But I'm not sure of the dates. So I guess I'll put some dates out there so maybe we can see some.
And maybe say the name of the gospel choir.
Yeah. That'll be on my handles somewhere. Because I don't want to get any names wrong or anything like that. So I'll definitely be that's my next project. And, as an indie artist, we really are kind of like, we go with the flow. We have to and being indie artists that are your own managers as well, we have to fill our own calendar up. So we shall see. I have plans to do a tour, mini tour, a couple mini tours, festivals, write some more music, but nothing released this year. And then, some background vocals for major artists and maybe some productions in the theater. All that will be online. But yeah, I have to fill my calendar up with a couple things. And I'm waiting to hear back to see if I've gotten some things that I've put myself out there for. So
sweet. Well, I cross my fingers and hold my thumbs.
Thank you.
It depends on who I talk to.
Yeah.
Because U.S. citizens usually only know to cross the fingers.
Yeah.
But I can do both. I can do the German way and the
okay.
Because we hold our thumbs to wish you luck and we don't cross your finger. We don't cross our fingers.
So you go like that.
So this is, I guess, the including everything.
Yes. Include it all. Give it all to me. I need it all.
And I also usually ask the people, and I will ask you that, of course, too. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Do you have any other plans? Do you want to maybe leave Berlin again and go, I don't know, to Bali?
I see myself still being here in Berlin, actually. I have some long-term plans here. I like it here. I do. So I dig it. I still see myself doing music.
Mm-hmm.
I still see myself being creative. Maybe growing into another field creatively, maybe some other responsibilities, maybe the production and the writing chair a little bit more, having my music be placed in popular film and music so I can make some coins off of that. Maybe starting my own label and supporting other artists, curating shows. I'm in it. I'm in it for the long haul, this music thing. So whatever it is, 5 years from now, it'll probably be music, but more so, I'll still be performing until I can't. That's not going to stop. But I definitely will probably be in other roles that are in power positions for other artists, maybe. Mm-hmm. I think.
And having said that, is there anything you need help with? Is there anyone that you would like, if anybody listens to the show and or to the podcast and feels like, oh yeah, I can offer that, what would you ask for if there's anything you would ask
world,
for?
honey. No, I'm kidding.
Me too.
I want it all. No, access to funds and resources to be able to do this is super important because, talking about like curating shows and all of these things, these are like the creative aspects, but to do those things, you need access to funds and money and resources that are beyond myself. Mm-hmm. So that's super important. Institutions that have the reach and accessibility to spaces that I wouldn't be able to get to is also important. So more major labels, distributors, placements in music, companies, these kind of things that I can do all of these things on independent levels. Yes, of course. But it's important to be able to get out there to a bigger community that I can't do on my own. I think that's what I want. That's what I would want help with. Mm-hmm. So.
Sweet. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have talked about a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And is there anything, though, that I have not asked you and you have sitting in your heart and you would like to share with all of us?
I have a lot of ideas that might seem off-putting to some people at times. A lot of some people might find them a bit combative. Mm-hmm. I have been called Sister Soldier in the past because I'm very militant about the things that I feel. Yes. And I have very strong rooted ideas and directions. But I think at heart, I am a person that's about love, and I am, a pacifist. Even though I speak very strongly about things, it's because I'm very passionate about them. It's not because I want people to be in harm's way or hurt or anything of that sort. So I think it's important to take away is that the reason I dig my heels in about a lot of things is because I do want love to win. Mm-hmm. And I am a pacifist, and I do, I guess, love the human. I love humans, I guess. Yes, I am a softie at heart. Yeah. So, yeah, that's important.
Well, wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. And thank you for your time, for coming here to my place. And goodbye to the audience. And thanks for listening in.
I just want to say just really quick,
yes,
it has been a joy talking to you on and off. I want to say camera, but there's no cameras around. But but it's been a joy speaking with you on and off on the podcast. I've definitely enjoyed our conversations, and I cannot wait to hear what people have to say about this, because I'm telling everybody about this. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.